I never thought I'd find myself doing this, airing my personal life out in public. But here I am, and I just can't keep it all bottled up anymore. This isn't some fictional drama or soap opera. This is my messed up reality. If you've ever had your heart torn apart, you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. This is about betrayal, revenge, and yeah, maybe a little bit of foolishness on my end too. But trust me, it's all real. Every single word. Let me get straight to the point. My wife cheated on me for money, not for love, not for passion, just for cold, hard cash. She got involved with some guy because he could give her everything I couldn't. The expensive stuff, the luxury things, the bullshit that seemed to define her life. Looking back now, I feel like such an idiot for not seeing it sooner. She played me, and I let her. But I guess I should start from the beginning. My name? Doesn't really matter right now. Let's just say I'm your average guy. I work in IT. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on. I've always dreamed of breaking out of the corporate rat race and doing my own thing, starting a business in tech. Maybe an app, maybe an IT consultancy, just something where I could make a name for myself. But you can't chase dreams without money, and well, I wasn't exactly rolling in it. That's where some of the problems began. Enter my wife, or should I say my ex-wife now. Olivia had this way of turning heads wherever she went. Picture it, long, dark hair that always fell just right, a smile that could melt anyone's defenses, and a body that made most guys lose track of what they were even saying. She knew she was beautiful, and she made sure to use it. Trust me, she absolutely used it. When we first met, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. She seemed perfect, fun, smart, and yes, stunning. She had expensive taste, sure, but who doesn't want nice things, right? At first, it was just small stuff, designer bags here, a couple pairs of expensive shoes there. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, I figured maybe I wasn't making enough, so I should just work harder. But over time, I started noticing more. It wasn't just that she liked fashion. She was obsessed with it. She had this thing for high-end luxury brands, the kind of stuff you only see on celebrity Instagram pages. She'd talk about how she deserved the best because, in her mind, she looked the best. Beauty wasn't just a gift to her, it was currency. I didn't get it then, but I sure as hell see it now. And don't get me wrong, we weren't struggling. We weren't on the edge of bankruptcy or starving. We had a decent place to live and even took the occasional vacation. But I wasn't pulling in enough cash to be buying $1,500 phones or $600 blouses every other month. That's where the tension started. We'd argue about money, but not in the way you might think. It wasn't the let's sit down and make a budget kind of talk. Instead, she dropped these passive-aggressive comments like it'd be nice if we could go on a real vacation for once. You know, somewhere exotic, or I saw this amazing dress today. It would look so great on me, but I guess I'll have to wait until we can afford it. It drove me crazy. I was working my ass off, trying to save for our future, and she was treating life like a never-ending shopping spree. She seemed to think that if she couldn't have it, it was somehow my failure. I tried explaining that we needed to live within our means, but she'd just get quiet, silent in that way that made me feel like I was failing her, like I wasn't good enough. So I picked up extra work, freelance gigs, side jobs, anything I could find to make more money. I had this idea for a tech startup that I thought could take off, but we were stuck in this financial loop. Every time I tried to save, something would come up. Usually it was her wanting something new. It felt like she had an endless appetite for stuff we didn't need. Then came the first real red flag, the phone. We were having dinner one night, nothing special, just pasta and wine at our little kitchen table. Her phone was sitting next to her plate, and when I reached over for the bread, she instantly grabbed it like it was about to explode. I froze. It was such a weird reaction. "You got something to hide?" I asked, half joking but dead serious. She shot me this cold, hard look that I'd never seen before. "No," she snapped, her voice flat and defensive. "Everyone deserves their own space. You don't need to touch my stuff." That didn't sit right with me at all. We'd never had secrets before. At least I didn't think we had. But that night, I realized something had changed. Something was off, and I had no idea what it was. From that point on, her phone became a locked vault. She started carrying it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And not just carrying it. She clutched it like it was some precious, fragile thing that would reveal her darkest secrets if I got anywhere near it. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who goes through his wife's phone. But something was gnawing at me, and I couldn't shake it. One day, when she was at work, I figured I'd take a shot. I found her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, and I grabbed it. My heart was pounding in my chest like I was about to defuse a bomb. And of course, it was locked. But it wasn't just the usual passcode. No, she had changed it. I didn't know how to deal with the rage building up inside me. I put the phone back, trying to act like nothing was wrong. But deep down, I knew everything had changed. Then came the handbag. You know how they say the devil's in the details? Well, in this case, the devil was in a damn handbag. She had this new purse she'd been showing off, claiming it was a really good fake she bought online. But curiosity got the best of me one day. I was alone in the apartment, staring at that bag, feeling like it was mocking me. I grabbed it and started Googling. Turns out that really good fake was an original worth $3,000. I couldn't believe it. Sitting there on the couch, phone in hand, I researched every detail about the brand, checking serial numbers, stitching patterns, the whole 9 yards. There was no doubt about it. The bag was real, and that's when it all started to click. The phone, the clothes, the shoes, all of it. She wasn't buying knockoffs. She wasn't getting this stuff with her paycheck. Someone else was footing the bill. That night, I confronted her. Is this bag real? I asked, holding it up like evidence in a courtroom. Without missing a beat, she said, no, of course not. It's a really good copy. You can't even tell the difference, can you? But this time, I wasn't buying her story. I knew she was lying to my face, and I felt like a complete fool for believing her all this time. But I didn't start a fight. Not yet. I wasn't ready to confront her fully. I needed more than just suspicions. I needed solid proof. And when I got it, things were going to go downhill fast. This was just the start. I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went, but I was about to find out. After the handbag incident, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let things slide. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while Olivia, the woman I thought I knew, was out there lying to my face. But I didn't want to confront her without knowing everything. I needed to catch her in the act. One morning, I had the day off. Olivia didn't know, so she got up early as usual, looking flawless in one of her perfectly put-together outfits, makeup on point, ready to head to work, or so she said. That's when the idea hit me. Why not follow her? If she was lying to me, I'd catch her red-handed. Worst-case scenario, I'd be wrong, and she'd actually be going to work. But something told me she wasn't. She kissed me goodbye, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. I waited a few minutes, making sure she wouldn't suspect anything, and then I followed. I kept my distance, my heart racing like I was in some spy movie. My hands were sweating, and my mind was running wild with possibilities. What if she wasn't going to work? What if she was meeting someone else? Then it happened. She didn't head toward her office. In fact, she didn't go in that direction at all. I followed her for about 10 minutes, but then I lost track of her. She got into a taxi, and before I could get close enough to catch the plate number or follow her, the cab sped off. I stood there, watching the taillights vanish, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. But I wasn't about to give up just yet. I decided to head to her workplace and ask around. When I got there, I saw one of the employees I'd met a few times before. She recognized me too, probably from office parties or when I drop Olivia off. I tried to play it cool, asking if Olivia was around or maybe on break. That's when the bombshell dropped. Oh, she doesn't work here anymore, the woman said, casual as could be, like it was no big deal. What do you mean? I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. She hasn't worked here for at least 3 months, the woman said, matter-of-factly. I thought you knew. My heart nearly stopped. 3 months. For 3 months, Olivia had been leaving for work every morning, but in reality, she hadn't even had a job. I felt like I'd just been hit with a sucker punch. I thanked the woman and left the office, my mind spinning in a million directions. The anger was bubbling inside me, hot and intense. I wanted to go home, wait for her, and confront her with everything. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust. She'd been lying to me every single day. On the way home, I couldn't keep it in any longer. I called my best friend, James, and spilled everything. I was furious, and my mind wasn't exactly thinking clearly. "I'm done with this, James," I said, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. "I'm confronting her tonight. She's got no clue what's coming." But James, being the voice of reason, talked me down. "Hold up, man," he said. "Your marriage is hanging by a thread right now. If you go in all guns blazing, you might never get the whole story. What if there's more going on than you think?" He had a point, and as much as I hated to admit it, I wasn't ready to explode just yet. If I lost my temper now, I might never figure out what was really going on with her, who she was seeing, what lies she was hiding. I wasn't ready to give up without getting the full picture. "I need your help," I told him, frustration rising in my voice. "I need to know what's going on here." James agreed, and we hatched a plan. The next day, I pretended to go to work like I always did. But instead, James and I would confront Olivia together. He had the perfect car for this: dark windows, smooth ride. No one would think twice. So, the next morning I got dressed for work, kissed Olivia goodbye, and walked out the door like nothing was wrong. But instead of heading to the office, I met James on the corner, jumped into his car, and we followed her. This time, she grabbed a taxi again, and we tailed her. She didn't go to some random motel or a friend's house, though. No, this time, she went straight into one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. We're talking gated communities with million-dollar mansions. The kind of place where people don't just own a nice car. They have an entire collection. James parked a block away, and we watched as Olivia looked around nervously before walking up to one of the fancy homes. Here's the kicker. She didn't knock or ring the bell. She pulled out a key and unlocked the door like she had every right to be there. James and I stayed parked, watching, trying to wrap our heads around it. The house was massive, with a driveway that screamed money. We sat there for hours, waiting, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. Finally, as the sun began to dip, the door opened, and Olivia stepped out. But she wasn't alone. A man followed her, tall and well-dressed, probably in his mid-40s. He looked like the kind of guy who had money just dripping off him. He put his arm around her, casual as could be, like they'd done this 100 times before. That's when James pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the guy. "Let's see who this jerk is," he muttered as we started looking him up. It didn't take long to find out who he was. Turns out, the guy walking out of that house with my wife was some big-shot businessman, real estate mogul. He was all over the internet: articles, interviews, charity events. You name it. We even found his Instagram page. It was filled with photos of him, but not a single one of him and Olivia. Nope, his feed was full of pictures of him, with a completely different woman, his wife. My stomach dropped. There it was clear as day. The proof I'd been dreading. The woman I'd been living with, the one I thought I knew, had been hiding a whole other life from me. And this guy? He wasn't just a fling. He was married to her. I just sat there, stunned, letting it all sink in. We knew we couldn't act on this yet, not without more. But the anger was boiling inside me. I had to go home, pretend everything was normal. I couldn't let her know I'd seen this. Not yet. I told James, "We'll deal with it tomorrow. But tonight, I have to keep it together." So that's exactly what I did. I went home, walked through the door, and kissed Olivia like nothing had changed. But deep down, I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. The weight of what I just learned hung heavy in the air. The next day, I couldn't get the image of Olivia walking out of that house with another man out of my head. It haunted me, gnawing at me every minute. I couldn't just leave it like that. I knew I had to do something, but what? Confronting Olivia immediately didn't seem smart. I needed more information, something solid. Then the businessman came back into my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about him. His face, his whole life laid out for the world to see. But not with Olivia. I scrolled through his Instagram again, looking at pictures of his lavish lifestyle, exotic vacations, expensive dinners, all with his actual wife by his side. It didn't take long to find her. She was tagged in several photos, so I clicked on her profile. It was set to private, but that didn't matter. I wasn't looking to dig through her posts. I had a different plan in mind. I sat there, figuring out how to word the message. I knew it wasn't going to be easy for her, and I didn't want to come off as some obsessed freak. So, I kept it simple. Hi, I'm reaching out because I have some important information about your husband. I prefer not to say too much over text. Can we meet? I think it's something you need to know. We can meet in a public place, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I sent it and sat there, not sure what to expect. But within the hour, she responded. She agreed to meet the next day at a busy cafe downtown. The next day, I showed up early, my nerves buzzing. I had no idea how this meeting would go. Would she be angry? Would she believe me? But when she walked in, she was calm, collected, and had that same quiet elegance about her that I'd seen in the photos. We sat down, exchanged some small talk, and I got straight to the point. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. I told her everything, how I had followed Olivia, the house, the photos, everything. I told her that her husband had been seeing my wife, buying her expensive gifts, living a life I never knew about. She listened, calm and collected, but there was no sign of shock on her face. It was like she'd been expecting this, or maybe she just wasn't surprised that her husband could be capable of something like this. When I finished, she took a deep breath, almost like she had already processed it. I need to look into this myself, she said, her voice steady. Give me your number, and I'll be in touch. There was no emotional outburst, no anger, not even disbelief. Just cold, calculated resolve. It was like she had already come to terms with it. Or maybe she'd been expecting it all along. She stood up, thanked me for the information, and left, leaving me sitting there, wondering if I'd just made everything worse. A week passed, and I thought it would never end. It was the hardest week of my life. I had to act like everything was normal at home, like I was still the clueless husband, while in reality, I knew everything. Olivia was still going to work every day, but now I knew exactly where she was going. Every kiss goodbye felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Then a week later, I got the call. It was her. Can you come to my house? She asked, her voice calm, almost too calm. I knew something was up. I agreed, and later that day, I found myself pulling up to her place. A huge, elegant house, far nicer than the apartment Olivia and I shared. She greeted me at the door, and I followed her inside. She led me to the living room, where there was a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the table. But I could tell this wasn't just a casual conversation. I hired a detective, she said, cutting straight to the point. He confirmed everything you told me. My husband has been renting that house for months. He's been meeting your wife there, and he's been buying her expensive things, jewelry, clothes, phones, you name it. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a long sip, and looked me dead in the eye. I'm going to ruin him, she said, her voice cold and calculated. He thinks he can get away with this, but he has no idea who he's messing with. I could feel the weight of her words. This wasn't a woman who was just going to sit back and let her husband walk all over her. She had a plan, and it wasn't going to end well for him. She finished her wine and refilled her glass before turning to me, sizing me up for a moment. Do you want some wine? She asked, and I nodded. I wasn't about to turn it down. I needed something to take the edge off, and honestly, I figured we both did. We talked for a while after that. She told me about her life, about how her father had built the business her husband now ran. Her father had been a powerful man, the kind of guy whose name opened doors and slammed them shut. She didn't say his name, and I got the feeling it was better that way. This was a woman who had been born into privilege, and she knew exactly how to use it. The conversation flowed more easily after a few drinks. She was sharp, intelligent, and honestly a little intimidating. But then, without any pretense or warning, she asked me something I wasn't expecting. Do you want to have? It wasn't flirtatious or seductive. It was just a question, matter of fact, like she was offering me a choice. I stared at her for a moment, thrown off guard. But then it hit me. I didn't need to think too hard about my answer. Yes, I said. The next hour or so was a blur. She knew exactly what she was doing, and there was no hesitation. No vi, no stiam. It felt almost like a transaction. She took control, and I didn't care. For once, I wasn't consumed with the weight of everything that had been eating me up. When it was over, I left her house feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and confusion. It wasn't just that gave me that feeling. It was the fact that for once, I had some control over the mess my life had become. She wasn't just some scorned wife. She was a woman on a mission, and now I was part of it, whether I liked it or not. When I got home that night, after everything that had happened, I couldn't pretend anymore. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew it was time to confront Olivia. I didn't care about keeping my cool, not after what I'd seen, not after what she had done. I slammed the door shut behind me, and the sound must have startled her. She turned, wide-eyed, like she knew exactly what was coming. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but shaking with anger. She barely looked up from her phone, still scrolling, acting like nothing was wrong. I wasn't about to let it slide. I stormed up to her, everything I'd been holding back finally spilling out. "I know everything," I said, my voice trembling with the fury I had been keeping bottled up. "I know about the businessman, the house, the lies. You really think I'm that stupid? You honestly thought I wouldn't figure it out?" That stopped her dead in her tracks. She dropped her phone, stood up, and just stared at me, like she couldn't believe I was calling her out. Her face twisted, a mix of anger and something else I couldn't place. But she didn't try to deny a thing. Instead, she snapped back at me. "So what? I don't need you. Haven't for a long time. You were just a placeholder. He's the one who takes care of me now. He loves me. He's going to leave his wife, and we'll be together." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she was proud of it, proud of betraying me and planning a future with him. "You really think he's going to leave his wife for you?" I asked, my words dripping with disbelief. "You're completely delusional." She glared at me, her arms crossed like she couldn't fathom why I wasn't kneeling before her fantasy. "He will," she insisted, her voice hardening. "You'll see." I took a step back, the anger in me building. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, the words coming out cold and final. "You can live in your delusion, but I'm done. We're done." She scoffed at me, as if I'd done something wrong. "Good. You should have done that years ago," she muttered, grabbing her things in one swift motion. She threw a few items into her bag, then walked out the door, leaving without another word. "No apologies, no regret," just complete indifference. What she didn't know was that her whole world was about to crash down around her. The very next week, her little fairy tale life came to an abrupt halt. His wife, the woman who had been so calm and composed, she wasn't sitting around waiting for things to work themselves out. She'd already started to get her revenge, and she had powerful connections. With her father's influence, she systematically destroyed her husband's business, unraveling everything he'd built. I didn't know all the details, but I didn't care. All I knew was Olivia's dream life had come crashing down just as fast as it had appeared. As for me, the divorce papers were filed, and the process moved surprisingly quickly. Olivia didn't put up a fight. Why would she? She had already moved on, or at least she thought she had. Then, just as things were starting to settle down, I got another call. This time, it was the businessman's wife again. She asked me to come over. I didn't know what to expect, but I went. When I arrived, she greeted me warmly, poured me a glass of wine, and we sat down in her lavish living room. Her eyes met mine, steady and calculating. "So," she began, breaking the silence, "what do you want in exchange for all this information?" At first, I didn't know how to respond. "I don't want anything," I said. "I'm just glad the truth's finally out there." But as I thought more, a different idea crept into my mind. I'd been stuck in a dead-end job for far too long, and I had an idea, something I'd been thinking about, but never had the courage to pursue. "There is one thing," I said, my voice more confident now. "I have a startup idea. It's still in the rough stages, but I think it could work." She listened closely, nodding as I laid out the plan. When I finished, she didn't hesitate. "No," she said flatly. "Come back tomorrow with a solid plan. Not like this." I didn't waste a second. I spent the entire night refining the idea, turning it from a rough sketch into something concrete. The next day, when I returned, she wasn't alone. A business analyst was with her, someone who seemed to assess every word I said with precision. He asked a few questions, and then he turned to her, whispering something I couldn't hear. She nodded, then turned to me. "All right," she said, the words hitting me like a revelation. "I'll invest, but I want 35% of the business if it becomes profitable." I was stunned. I never expected this. Not in a million years. But there was a real opportunity. Without hesitation, I agreed to her terms. Now I'm sitting here in my own office, building a team to launch my startup. I can't go into the details just yet, but I'm confident it's going to work. I can feel it in my bones. Funny how things work out. What started as the worst time of my life is now turning into something that could change everything for me. Thank you, Reddit, for letting me get this all off my chest. Sometimes life takes you down a road you never expected. But maybe that's the point. You never know what's waiting for you on the other side. Update: it's been about a year since everything went down. Looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. I'm sitting here in my office. Yeah, my office, writing this update, and I still can't quite believe how much things have changed. Life is good now, really good, and I owe so much of it to the lessons I learned during the darkest period of my life. Let me start with the business. The startup I mentioned? It took off way faster than I ever could have imagined. The woman who invested in me, the businessman's ex-wife, kept her word. She provided the capital I needed, and with that, I built a team that believed in my vision. The first few months were brutal, though. Late nights, endless meetings, tweaking the product over and over until it was just right. But it all paid off. The business is thriving now. We have a steady stream of clients, and we're growing faster than I ever thought possible when this was just a dream. And just to clear the air, my relationship with her, the investor, is strictly business. She's sharp, no nonsense, and she keeps everything professional. We meet regularly, but it's always about the company. No hidden motives, no weird tension. Nothing like what happened between us in the past. We've both moved on, and it works. Now let's talk about the fun part. Olivia. Yeah, she came crawling back. I didn't think she would. After everything that happened, I figured I was out of her life for good. But once the news of my business success started getting around, she suddenly remembered who I was. It started with a simple message. "Hey, how have you been?" Like she hadn't torn our life apart and left me for another guy. I didn't reply. Then the messages started piling up. Longer, more desperate. She hinted at how much she missed me, how she made a huge mistake, and how she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. Classic move, right? The cherry on top came when she called me one night, trying to sound all sweet and remorseful. She said everything you'd expect. "I still care about you. We had something special. Maybe we could start over." But here's the thing. She didn't care about me. She saw the success, the money, and thought she could waltz back into my life like nothing had happened. I let her talk for a bit, then flat out told her to go to hell. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the response she expected, because the silence on the other end of the line said it all. I hung up, and I never looked back. Let her deal with the mess she created. But enough about her. There's someone new now. Her name's Lily. We met a few months ago in the most random way, at a friend's party, and it was like we just clicked. She's different. No drama, nobody, no hidden agendas. She's funny, smart, and down to earth. She doesn't care about the material stuff. She doesn't even know about my business yet, at least not the details. I've been keeping that part of my life to myself. Not because I don't trust her, but because I want to make sure she's with me for me. Not for the success or the money. We've been spending a lot of time together, and yeah, I'm really starting to like her. It's refreshing, actually, to be with someone who doesn't expect anything from me except honesty. It's nice after everything I've been through. I'm not in any rush to tell her about the business, though. Maybe one day when it feels right. For now, I'm just enjoying getting to know her without any complications. So, here I am now. A year ago, I was stuck in the worst time of my life, with everything falling apart around me. And now, I'm running a successful business, surrounded by a team of people who believe in what we're building. I've got my life back, and I've got something to look forward to. I want to end this by thanking everyone who's been following my story, reading along with me through it all. Life throws us into situations that seem impossible to survive. But if I can make it through, so can you. Believe in yourself, in your ability to rise above the chaos. Never let anyone take away your worth. Success isn't just about the money or the power. It's about learning from the pain, pushing forward, and becoming the best version of yourself. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful for the lessons, even though they came at a steep price. For anyone reading this, whether you're in the middle of your own mess or trying to figure it out, keep going. You deserve the best, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you, Reddit, for being here through it all.